the mid-50s. It rained yesterday. The ground is still saturated, so it is muddy and slippery as this start list gets set to take to the course. 47 racers in all. The most from one country is no surprise. They're from Belgium. They've sent 15 riders to this race here in Iowa City. And the host squad, the Americans, with 14 riders in the field today. I'm Steve Schlanger with the 6-time national champion, Tim Johnson. And Tim, we go down this front row with some of the top names in the sport expected to challenge for the podium here today.
As you mentioned, the Belgians definitely show up here in Iowa and Madison, Wisconsin with their best. And you've got Corne van Kessel here, one of the Dutch riders who's slotted right into 5th position after his finish last weekend in Madison. Another Dutch rider, Vantur here, looking to make up for his challenging opening race of the season with his big crash in Madison.
Doren is the overall World Cup leader, wearing that white leader's jersey after his victory in Waterloo, Wisconsin in the season opener a week ago. Lawrence Swake of Belgium involved in a crash in that race just outside of Madison last Sunday.
Yeah, this is good. This is what we want to see. You know, as cyclocross fans, tire choice is key, especially in conditions like this. Well, Vantur starting with his mud tires. A lot of these riders looking to start at about 1.5 bar, which is about 21 PSI. Very, very low for a rider of this size.
Start position so critical in cyclocross. You want to be in this front row alongside a guy like Michael Vantur, and that allows you to get out front early, perhaps get that hole shot and establish your position at the front of the race. You don't want to be chasing, especially on a course like this and against an elite field such as this as well.
Well, one of those riders you just mentioned, Michael Vantur, is known for his very fast starts, typically getting a hole shot. If it's not a rider like Mathieu van der Poel, really the 300-pound gorilla, who is not here right now, he is going to be missed on the start line, but a lot of these riders looking to take advantage of that fact and get these big World Cup points to kick off their year.
They begin on a paved section that is muddy from recent weather conditions. Wout van Aert in that rainbow jersey out front. As they come down this straightaway, they will head onto a grassy section and then some turns on a flat area before the signature feature of this course comes up, which is Mount Crumpet, one of the highest elevations in this area in Iowa City, and also some mud to deal with as well from the recent rains. But this is the flat section early on the course. And in this opening lap, we're going to get a look at some of these course features that could play a role here in this race today, including the Mount Crumpet climb.
Well, Steve, that start is very unique in cyclocross, starting off on asphalt, going into the dirt, really bumpy at the end with some water they had to deal with. You saw the riders immediately get splashed, having a hard time seeing right into the first mud section. This has really been challenging for a lot of the racers throughout the week. They've tried to keep this course preserved for the World Cup races. Men going off here first this afternoon, women later on this afternoon. And you've got Doren, winner of last week, out in front, able to take advantage of that leading position, get a first look, stay out of trouble, stay out of the mud, hopefully not come down in a crash. And obviously he's a shining beacon right there. He's keeping that skin suit nice and clean.
It won't be white for much longer, however. This is the first lap of, we don't exactly know how many. They will determine how many laps overall they will do once they get to the end of this first time around the course, just to make sure that they can time it out and get us to just about 1 hour of racing altogether. Doren's riding this section. Other riders already off the bike carrying, and now Doren decides to disembark, and he's going to carry up this very muddy, slippery, half grass, half mud section as well. Now everybody off the bike, it looks like. That's going to make it one of the interesting aspects about this race today, the decision in certain areas whether to ride or whether to run like this.
Well, local knowledge says, you remember the years that we could ride Mount Crumpet, and you can kind of tick off the years that they were conditions like this, really no one's going to be able to ride it throughout the rest of the day unless it continues to dry out. But with the forecast being what it is, it doesn't look like it'll be that way. Toon Aerts, he was able to ride into it. Because he was first, he could ride 5 or 10 more pedal strokes than everyone else. Then he was forced to hop off and start running. That's the benefit of leading a race like this from the beginning. Good start for a lot of the riders. You know, it's key to getting into your pedals first so that you have a chance to get up to full speed on the start straight, and then it's up to your fitness, your preparation, your skills and everything to continue along the rest of the way. Well, Van Aert making up for his about 5th place start, now moving up into 2nd. A course like this, Steve, with so much elevation, really does separate riders immediately. You know, you show your fitness, your form, everything, even on this first lap.
The Mount Crumpet climb, one of the highest climbs on any World Cup course throughout the course of the season overall. And they do that 3 times per lap, just coming up from different directions each time up. And now it is Toon Aerts, joined by Wout Van Aert at the front of the race here. Lars van der Haar there, Tim Melier, Cornevet Kessel in the top 5 at the moment, but no surprise, the top 12 dominated largely by Belgian riders.
So this is an important start to drop into the first big descent of the day.
This is how they rolled off. Toon Aerts wasn't exactly at the very front early, but used his skill and savvy to make his way into that first position before too long.
Now this is the first big challenge of this course. This downhill has been very challenging for every single rider, no matter if you're the world champion in 2nd position like Wout van Aert, or you are entering your first World Cup like Cooper Wilsey, one of our American riders who's taking the start. So this is going to be challenging. Lars van der Haar off of his bike early, deciding to run. Wout van Aert continuing to stay on his bike. He's going to be able to make it around this corner. If he finishes off that exit, then he has made the right choice for him. But everyone else, well, if we take a look back at that descent, it's a total chaos as they try and find traction wherever they can. But look at that gap right now. Toon Aerts goes from 1st to 2nd with a sizable gap with this rider, Wout van Aert.
So the 3-time defending world champion now out front on this opening lap off that very tricky descent. The weather has really created some unusual conditions and is going to play a huge role in this race today. Over the course of the last month or so, it's rained a lot more than it normally does for this time of year in Iowa City. Then raining off and on the last few days. Not expected to rain during this race today, but very soft, muddy conditions, and with the elevation changes, the significant hill, providing many opportunities for riders to decide whether to stay on their bikes, to get off. You have that technical aspect of the race that comes into play, and strategy is going to be so important as well.
Well, Steve, you talk about getting on or off your bike. That barrier section that we just saw, Lars van der Haar is the only rider in the top 8 to get off of his bike and actually dismount. It shows how much bunny hopping as a skill has really gotten into what it takes to be at the top level of a World Cup race. You know, talking about cyclocross, as you mentioned, it's 70 minutes for a World Cup, which means that as they complete this first lap, they'll actually make a calculation and then decide how many laps the riders will be able to finish while getting the finish time about as close to 70 minutes as they possibly can. But someone right now who's now thinking about that is Wout van Aert. He's going to hit one of the more challenging sections here. He's going to have to climb up this very steep section, typically a run-up. You can see the steps on the right-hand side from all the other categories, absolutely coming to a dead stop at the top of that section before going across this very difficult, slippery off-camber section. Look at that, very challenging. Even crashing uphill is something unusual, very special in cyclocross.
So, riders off their bikes here. Toon Aerts and Wout van Aert there at the very front. And it looks like Quentin Hermans in the blue, bib number 4, moving into a top 4 position.
One of the riders in blue right there, number 8, Elie Iserbyt. He's one of our best young riders in the sport. Belgian national champion, world champion in the under-23 categories, racing here with the elites. A lot of under-23s here. back at the replay of this move here. Wout van Aert staying on his bike, going on the inside. Toon Aerts, he took the safe line by going far to the right-hand side of the screen. You know, a lot of times you're looking for traction. Traction is green at this point. The brown stuff is what you want to stay out of. You want to look for that green stuff. You can actually get some traction on your tires, including that rider there, number 37, trying to ride out that section, Eric Thompson of the USA.
How much will we see those strategies changing throughout the day?
You know, I really feel that this course is going to change almost lap by lap, and so the choice you make 2 laps ago means nothing the next time you see that section. It's something that really, you know, as a rider who's been more experienced, someone who has a lot of years under their belt, you know, you got to remember Wout van Aert and Toon Aerts, they're not that old. You know, they have not been racing for 15 years, but they also have a ton of high-level experience. So the decisions that they make are going to be the ones that propel them to the front of this race and keep them there.
So the end of lap number 1, it is the 3-time and defending world champion Wout van Aert leading Toon Aerts at the front of this race here in Iowa City. The riders out on lap number 2. It is Wout van Aert and Toon Aerts at the very front. Toon Aerts, last week's winner in Waterloo, Wisconsin, to kick off the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup season. Now Wout van Aert finished in 2nd, and then Laurens Swenk, their fellow Belgian, rounded out the podium, finishing in 3rd.
Steve, I want to bring attention to a young American rider in 11th place, Gage Hecht. He's coming off of a very strong road season with an excellent start here. He loves these tough conditions. He loves the technical aspect of the Jingle Cross course. So for him to start top 15 on the first lap of the World Cup as an under-23 rider, he's really set himself up for a great day today.
One of 14 Americans in the field. One American we don't have is the national champion, Stephen Hyde, who crashed on the first lap last week in Wisconsin, broke his sternum, so he's not here racing in Iowa City.
Yeah, chatting with him throughout the week. He's really disappointed to not be here. He had a great race here last year. He's definitely shown himself to be the best American cyclocross racer we have on the men's side. And I know he's at home watching right now, hoping that he heals up quickly and gets back out here, because there's nothing worse than being an athlete and having to watch your peers out there racing.
Someone else who is not here is our defending champion, Vantur, who swept the North American races last year, winning in both Waterloo, Wisconsin, and here in Iowa City. He is coming off the mountain bike season, finished on the podium at the Mountain Bike World Championships just a few weeks ago, so taking a break, not making the trip here to the U.S. He's going to pick up when the races resume for the cyclocross season in Europe next month.
We're going to be talking about Mathieu van der Poel for many years, and even including this season. You know, a lot of people have watched him on different disciplines on the road bike, in mountain biking, and have been totally impressed with everything that he's been doing. And he's definitely missed out here. I know that Wout van Aert himself is looking to battle him head-to-head, because they really have a rivalry that will carry their careers higher for both of them, and definitely bringing a lot of fans into the sport from their home countries of Belgium and the Netherlands, but you know, all across the world, really.
It's Wout van Aert out front here on lap number 2, but Toon Aerts glued to his wheel. About 5 seconds back to the rest of the chasers here. Michael Vantur out. Quentin Hermans, Tim Milieu also in the top 5 here. And just a handful of seconds back. But we've seen in the past, a handful of seconds is all that 2 riders of this quality need to stay away the entire race. Now, things can happen, crashes, mechanicals, that bring everybody back into the field, but just a few seconds for riders like Van Aert, Toon Aerts, they may stay in this position the rest of the race.
Got Quentin Hermans there, number 7 in the black, so he's looking for a good race today. He really wants to get on the podium. He knows that he's able to do it. He knows that he's capable of it. I watched the Telenet UCI team really try and look at this next downhill piece by piece, trying to make sure that they had their right moves down, where they understood where they needed to look for traction, if they needed to get on or off. Wout van Aert also spending a lot of time out there before the start. Again, the men are racing first this weekend, following with what happened in Waterloo last weekend. The women getting the marquee spot late in the afternoon. It gives the men here a different opportunity to race on a course that's relatively clean. You know, they're going first They're on fresh sections of grass. You can see the grass mixed in with the mud. It makes it very challenging. What looks like has traction really doesn't. So crashes were happening nonstop in the pre-ride. These two riders getting through clean. What happens in the middle of the field or even at the back is vastly different, though. You can see Quentin Ehrman's running. He's trying to make his way down there. He's obviously going as fast as Vantur, but he needs to hop back on his bike and get back up to speed. So that move, which might have worked the first lap, is probably not going to carry you through lap 5 or 6. You're going to have to make some adjustments later.
Trying to gain on the rest of the field, Wout Vantur and Toon Aerts leading the way, and they are in fact stretching their lead. It is just over a dozen seconds right now. Back to our next two, Michael Vantur and Quentin Hermans. Hermans was on the podium in this race last year, finishing 3rd behind Mathieu van der Poel and Laurens Swick. Wout Vantur was 14th here in Iowa City a year ago, and that was off a 7th place finish in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Wout Vantur, despite winning the World Championships at the end of last season, did not get off to a strong start in the 2 North American races as he finished outside the top 5 both in Wisconsin and here in Iowa.
Yeah, that was a tough start to the season, but as you say, he finished it off right, really having a dominating performance in Valkenburg and showing a lot of the other riders that he was able to fight a rider like Mathieu van der Poel, who is really legendary coming into it because of his success throughout the rest of the season, beating Wout van Aert time and time again. Wearing that rainbow jersey was not an easy feat for him to do, but he's had an incredibly challenging start of the season. It's been all over the press in Belgium, really top of the line in Sports Center of Belgium. Just the drama surrounding the team folding, trying to break the contract, trying to leave, trying to make his own way. He's got a contract signed with the World Tour road team starting in spring of 2019. But until then, he's on his own, and he has really benefited from being a rider to get support from all kinds of different places, support from material sponsors like bikes and components, all the way to friends and family who are out there ready to support him however they possibly can.
And so much went down with Wout Vantur when he arrived in Wisconsin last week. As a matter of fact, his mechanic from his team, his old team for cyclocross, was not allowed to work on his bike, so they basically had to have the neutral service mechanics build him new bikes. And now he's having an issue here as Toon Aerts passes him.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of a shoe issue. He's trying to dial that back in. Sometimes if you knock a shoe that has a dial system on it, sometimes the release is actually to bump it. And so in cyclocross, you're getting on and off your bike a lot. You're constantly changing position. He might have bumped it getting into the flyover section. There's a stair section that has to get you up on top of it. He might have actually bumped it by accident.
Well, they are going to complete 8 laps here in this men's event. This is the end of the 2nd lap, and these two on front, Toon Aerts and Wout Vantur, have extended their margin to 18 seconds over the chasers behind them. So it is Toon Aerts, Wout Vantur at the front of the field at the end of lap number 2 here in Iowa City. And now the race for the bottom step of the podium at the moment. Michael Vantur out, and Quentin Hermans 3rd and 4th on the road. Then Melier, Laurens van der Haar, Corne van Kessel, Laurens Swick. The next on the road here. And half a minute back
It's up to 19
as they start their 3rd lap of the day. Some big gaps forming just outside of the top 10. And now back to the very front. After the shoe issue for Wout Vantur, Toon Aerts moving to the front, and Wout Vantur right behind. This is the way they finished last week's race in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Toon Aerts ahead of Wout Vantur in 2nd. Laurens Swick completed the podium in Wisconsin.
Got a little bit of a replay of the shoe issue. You can see him starting to dial that shoe closure down. A lot of riders who are enthusiasts watching from at home know this feeling. If you have a shoe that is loose, you lose all kinds of power, and the transfer that you need to really feel good on your bike is gone. So you immediately need to fix that. Unfortunately, his biggest competitor saw him do that. So if he knows that Wout van Aert is dealing with a shoe problem, it'll help him. It will help him be more aggressive in a situation like this. He's trying to ride it even farther. He's trying to push the pace while he can. His win last weekend was his first World Cup victory. A huge move for a young rider like Van Aert against a world champion. It's a huge accomplishment for him, and he really wants to have that feeling once again. And it looks like he's got Wout van Aert a little bit on the ropes right now.
And then Vantur out in the blue, followed right behind by Quinten Hermans.
I got a crash right behind there. Another uphill crash. Looks like it was a Telenet UCI rider. Take a look at, it might be Corne van Kessel.
Looks like a group of 6 here, just behind our front 4. Now we have 2 at the front, 2 chasers, then a group of 6, and then a few other riders sprinkled in here in pursuit up the hill.
Steve, you mentioned how much elevation this course has, and you can see it on their faces right now. When you're running uphill and you look like you've been running for 2 hours already, and you have to remember it's been 18 minutes that they've been racing so far. Mount Crumpet taken 3 ways, running 1 lap, riding 2 other times. That elevation really adds up, and it is one of the most difficult World Cups that we have on the circuit. A course like Namur in Belgium or in Valkenburg in the Netherlands, those are 2 of the other courses that have a ton of elevation, and riders really try and prepare specifically for it.
And as far as significant course changes to years past, nothing has changed all that dramatically. I guess the biggest difference between last year and this year is the fact that the 3rd time out Mount Crumpet on every lap is a lot harder than it used to be. It's steeper, it requires them to run up, and being the 3rd time up makes it that much more challenging. So that's probably the biggest difference, that 3rd time up Mount Crumpet really providing a demanding test of fitness for these athletes.
A lot of opening season races, you feel it in your lower back. I mean, anyone who has ridden cyclocross knows that feeling of your back just locking up. You have to try and release it, and you can just see how much pressure you have to put into the pedals, because remember, this is soft grass, it's soft dirt, it's really challenging, all that elevation, and you're trying to put down as much power as you possibly can. Your body will take it only so much before it starts to break down. A lot of riders that we're seeing in the middle of the pack are suffering from those back problems right now.
Tricky downhill section here. See how methodically they pick their way around the corners. All the mud, grass mixed in from the rain we've had over the course of the last month, and especially the last few days. How has the weather, do you think, impacted this course and so far this race the most in just the first couple of laps?
Yeah, a lot of people are excited when it starts to rain, especially on the internet. In real life, however, it is tough. It's something you have to try and change your preparation, what tires you have. There was a big scramble for tires, especially, if you looked at the long-range forecast, you're flying from Europe, you don't really want to carry 20 sets of tires. These are all tubulars glued to the rim. You only have specific tire and tread selections to choose from. So when it started to rain the last couple days, it was really tough to figure out what you were going to use. Even earlier this morning, watching some of the riders practice, they were starting to look at intermediate tires, mud tires, all compared to last weekend's blazing fast course where file treads were what a lot of riders use. So no, this is classic cyclocross. When things change within a 1-hour race, you know that you have hit the best part of the season.
We have had some hot and dry races here over the years, but this is much more to the liking of the European riders. This is that classic fall cyclocross feel that many of them are used to.
Not just the riders, the fans. I saw a lot of people out there pretty excited to be holding a hot cup of cider, getting ready to watch a big cross race.
And you can still hold a cold cup of beer, too. There's nothing against that as well.
I think that's happening right now as well.
A lot of those fans are up on top of Mount Crumpet, where traditionally a lot of fans gather. That's the big party spot on the course. And in case you're wondering why they call it Mount Crumpet, a lot of the course sections have holiday-themed names because this is part of the Jingle Cross Festival. And this is the third year that this race has been part of the Telenet World Cup. It used to be a smaller race not associated with the World Cup, and they held it over the holidays. So it had a Jingle Cross name and holiday theme to it, and even though they've moved it up to accommodate the World Cup here into September, they've kept the name and the branding for the Jingle Cross Festival, just now incorporated as part of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup.
Yeah, Steve, watching that last section right there, I am so impressed with the power that Toon Aerts and Wout Vantur put out. They hit the bottom of that, what is now going to be a run-up for half the field at least. They hit that and put out immediately, I don't know, I'm going to guess like 1,200, 1,300 watts just to get moving at that thing. And then they're able to hold so much torque before the off-camber sections to continue to stay on their bikes. You know, we look at riders having to hop off when they get to their limit physically. It seems like riders like this just go ahead and keep going.
Well, they're putting a lot of time into the field. Now it's almost half a minute between these two at the front and all of the chasers. Toon Aerts, World Cup leader, last week's winner, just ahead of the three-time world champion Wout Vantur. 3 laps down, 5 laps left to go.
Wow,
as they are kind of
through.
Yeah, talking to each other here. Wout Vantur saying he's not going to take the pull as Toon Aerts looks over his shoulder. 3 laps down and out on the lap number 4 for our 2 leaders.
Yeah, that's a big move right there. You go ahead and give the world champion a chance to contribute to the pace, and he shakes it off and says, you know what, I really can't right now. That means that you are killing him. And for a rider like Toon Aerts, when he won European Championships, that was one of his biggest championship to win. You know, he's out there in the European Championship jersey for a whole season. He has really continued to develop into one of the best riders, and he's obviously starting this season off with great form.
So what do you do in a situation like that? You're Toon Aerts, you're leading, the world champion doesn't want to pull through. How do you play it?
Well, you know, it's funny, looking at how the women's race went last weekend, we had one of the most accomplished cyclists of all time, Marianne Vos, riding with Ellen Noble. And Ellen is new to the top ranks of the sport. She's out there. She's just so incredibly motivated. She's obviously feeling great. And how Marianne Vos was playing that is how Wout Vantur might be playing this. Wout is like, you know what? It's up to you to try and drop me. If you don't drop me, then I'm going to try and beat you at the end. But it looks like Toon Aerts has a problem. He just gave a signal to the pit. You're going to see he's going to pop in here, grab a fresh bike. It's the first bike change that we've seen so far. Wout Vantur taking a look back at the other riders going the other direction, but Toon Aerts probably trying to avoid collecting too much grass in the chain area. You know, bottom bracket, you want a clean bike. Might be nice to, might have a different tire pressure. Maybe the last time through he had said, you know, drop the pressure 1 PSI or a little bit, and you'll see how that goes. But first tire, first bike change of the race for Toon Aerts.
And even though Wout Vantur moves to the front of the race, doesn't lose too much track position, he's still right behind him after a relatively smooth change in the pit.
I'm going to guess that that's a marshmallow being held over the course there.
And I'm only wondering as to what exactly the intention might be. There's no fire pit. You're not going to roast it and make a s'more, right?
Well, you know, I got to say, eating a marshmallow is probably pretty tough to do when you're running up this thing right now. Quentin Ehrman's on the front.
They're not allowed to take a feed, so it doesn't do them much good even if they wanted to, right?
Exactly. Michael Vantur now, one of the faster, more exciting riders that we've seen, riding in the shadows of Wout Vantur and Mathieu van der Poel. He's always been out there the last couple seasons. You know, he's really been challenging for some of the races, but he needs to be on really good form, and that's when he really rides his best. Sometimes drops back into the group here. There's the marshmallow on the ground. You know, group riding, a lot of the times, if you're in a group of 4 or 5 and you're chasing a duo like these two, you're going to lose a few seconds a lap, and that is something that you really can't fight against. It's because these two up here really only have to think about each other. They only have to think about the line that they're going to take. There's really nothing else going on. The last time through start-finish, we saw Lawrence Wake attack his group, and that really doesn't help the overall speed, but you know, it definitely gives you a chance of trying to improve a little bit. But Steve, classic scene right here.
Try to keep the bikes clean. Not easy on a day like this. to see the mud-splattered jerseys of our world champion and our overall World Cup leader here at the front of the race. They have 26 seconds on the rest of the field. So at this point, barring some issue that these two may have that would slow them down, is this the race for the win?
You know, it might be. We're looking at just about halfway at the end of this next lap. And, you know, if they were to stay out of trouble, it could mean that. However, you got to remember, when it's muddy like this, really anything can happen. A chain can get stuck, it can break. You know, we saw a chain break last night. Helen Wyman fighting in the C2 category, C2 race last night here on the same course. She had a chain break just on the second lap and was forced to chase back. She eventually wound up winning the event. But, you know, it just goes to show that anything can happen. That's, you know, that's not a crash either. Section like this is Wout van Aert goes into this next hard left-hand turn. You see how slippery it is, those tires slipping over the mud and the grass. You could crash at any moment on virtually any section of this descent. Wout van Aert was second the last time down. He's going to lead this way. Now, see the fans ready for anything. Quick little dab there from van Aert and Toon Aerts.
And then Quentin Hermans and Michael Vantur out right behind. It's now just about 20 seconds from Van Aert and Aerts back to Hermans and Vantur out here, and then another 30 seconds or so back to the rest of the chasers, including Lawrence Sweck, Corda Van Kessel, then Sota, and some others.
Well, still deciding to run is Quentin Hermans. You know, I talked to him before the start. We're discussing tire pressure, tire selection. He said that he was going to run, and he said he's going to run as long as he thought it was going to be worth it. And it looks like he still considers a potential crash to be not, you know, it's something he wanted to avoid. He's willing to run. May not cost a lot of extra energy, but definitely helps you feel more in control of things.
Working their way towards the end of lap number 4, Wout van Aert and Toon Aerts. Remember earlier, Toon Aerts wanted Wout van Aert to pull through, and he couldn't do it. But then Aerts went to the pit for a new bike. Wout van Aert went to the front, and that's the way we have been ever since. They will make this turn here.
I was impressed
for the start of the next lap. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Steve. I was impressed last week with the fact that Wout van Aert, after all of that drama that he had to face before he even landed on the ground here in the U.S., that he was able to pull off a second-place finish in Waterloo. That was really an impressive ride. I think that the Wout van Aert that we see starting today is more of what we will see for the rest of the season. Don't forget, he has come off of a breakthrough year on the road, you know, getting on the podium at Strade Bianche, winning multiple individual stages of road races throughout the year, you know, going up against some of the biggest stars in Belgium one-on-one. You know, he really has earned his place in the World Tour. So for him to have this race right now, this is the Wout van Aert we expect, and I think this is something that he's really happy with, and I think we're going to see his confidence build throughout the day today.
Yeah, last week had to be difficult, both physically and mentally, dealing with the bikes that had to be built at the last second, trying to test those bikes, tweak them, get them ready for race day. So he was in this constant state of flux just ahead of the race itself. So as a former racer, Tim, you know that when things aren't dialed in well ahead of time, it makes you unsettled. And that's not the way you want to go into the start of a World Cup season.
Yeah, we actually had a chance to talk about it. He was, he's one of the more approachable European cyclocross stars we've ever had. And I think that he's really the product of what has now been 20 years of American influence on cyclocross. It really has kind of opened doors up a little bit. But Wout van Aert said that, you know what, it was really tough, but I just need to get through it. I need to figure it out, and it's something that I need to do on my own. And as he does that, he's only going to be a better cyclist because of it. That kind of drama happening this early on in his career, he's going to be better for it.
Wout van Aert is the leader at the front, just ahead of Toon Aerts. 4 laps down, 4 to go, halfway through this event in Iowa City.
Lap times pretty consistent, just under 8 minutes. They did a 7:53 lap that time through, which is
the battle for third place here between Michael Vantur and Quentin Hermans, third and fourth on the road. Well back of our two leaders, however.
They have to work together. They have to stay calm because otherwise they're going to be racing.
As they commence with lap number 5, 24 seconds down. So that's going to make interesting tactics for them, because when do they start thinking about, okay, we're racing for third. Now it's a battle for the bottom step of the podium, not for first or second. And how does that dynamic unfold?
Yeah, the World Cup podium is a pretty big target to hit. I mean, it's really something special for a lot of people. And it's not the bottom step, it is still the podium. And when you fly home after an American visit like this, hitting these 2 World Cups with a podium in your pocket, you will kick off your season in a better direction. And I think that is going to be a very sought after position. These groups are really, they're battling each other, whoever they're with as a duo, but they're also battling these groups who are following them. You've got Kevin Powell's trying to chase you down. That is someone pretty difficult to stay away from. We see another bike swap here. Wout van Aert getting on a fresh ride. Toon Aerts as well.
Aerts for the second time in the pit.
This is what makes cyclocross so special is, it is a very equipment-intensive sport. When you show up with all these different tires and bikes and everything to choose from, you want to use it. And you want to be able to rely on your pit crew to give you what you need. So take another look back at this pit. You see how quick this bike swap is. Barely off of a bike for more than a second. Toon Aerts taking a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a little bit rusty to do bike swaps early in the season. You don't really have an opportunity to do it at a race like Waterloo. It's very fast. Unless you had a real bike problem or a crash, you were going to stay on the bike that you start with.
With the mechanic, that cost him.
So into the second half of this race now. Second of 9 events on the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup calendar for this year. Started off last week in Waterloo, Wisconsin, which is just about 3.5 hours north of here. And after today's race in Iowa City, it's on to Europe for the remainder of the campaign. 7 more races left to go before the World Championships in Denmark to close out the season in the middle of winter. And here is now Michael Vantur out, chased by Quentin Hermans, and quite a gap now has developed here between 3rd and 4th place.
Yeah, a little bit of a split there. Must have happened just after the going through the finish line area. It's one mud section after the pits. Might have seen a small little mistake there, but look at these two going up this long uphill. And when you look at this, Steve, you got to remember they're going uphill for almost a minute. I mean, it's just constantly uphill. When you look at them come around this corner, this is uphill. This is not flat whatsoever. Standing up like this, you know that when a rider as strong as this is standing, it's taking a lot to get up it. And they just continue to go and to go and to go.
And the amount of energy not only to go uphill, but also in these soft conditions. Slow terrain that you got to slog your way through. And I think the wind's picking up even more, especially on top of the hill. Earlier in the day, it wasn't that windy. It's been cold in the mid-50s, but the wind, as the race has developed here, is starting to pick up quite a bit, it seems.
Well, you're talking about the soft conditions. There was a lap time graphic that showed up a little while ago, and we have our own telemetry to look at. The lap times are getting slower and slower, and that means that the course is drying out. As it gets drier, the mud gets stickier. The tires will literally stick to the ground more, and you will go slower and slower and slower. You're still putting out the same effort, even more sometimes, but your lap times are getting slower. That's what makes a race like this feel like it's going on forever and ever and ever. And you really have to be in incredibly good shape to come out of a race like this and feel like, you know what, that was exactly the race I wanted. Otherwise, everyone is thinking, oh my God, when are we going to be done?
Picking their way through these corners here. And safely done by both Wout van Aert and Toon Aerts.
Those jumps last week that Toon Aerts was doing over the flyover in Waterloo, a little bit not really happening today. He is one of our better bike handlers out there, you know, the tall, skinny guy in the World Cup leader jersey in second position. He can really throw his bike around, but I feel like Wout van Aert is gaining confidence on that descent. We saw him lose a little bit of time early on, but he has been leading since then and has actually started to gap Toon Aerts off each time.
Yeah, it's looking better and better. Wout van Aert, the Belgian who turned 24 years of age 2 weeks ago. Three-time world champion. All three of those victories coming in the last 3 seasons. Two-time World Cup Series winner here on the Telenet Series. Belgian national champion for each of the last 3 years as well. Now Vantur ahead of Hermans here. And the first time on this lap that we've seen this kind of margin between these two riders. The battle for third place that began on that opening lap when we started to get the separation between our 2 out front and then the 2 behind. So Quentin Hermans, who was on the podium in 3rd here last year, some work to do to get on the podium for the 2nd year in a row here in Iowa City. Doren just a second or so behind Wout van Aert, not on his wheel the way he was earlier.
Yeah, a little bit of a separation there. This section, though, look at that. Doren's really riding that very well, closing that gap right up. But absolutely attacking the bike to do that takes a lot of effort. You can only do that so many times each race. Good runner as well. He's got his bike on his shoulder, Wout van Aert doing the push instead. It's personal preference, really what you choose to do. Sometimes when the mud is really thick, you don't want to push it because it will stick to the bike itself, stick to the tires. But it looks like that mud is pretty tacky right there, so it's not as much of an issue. You know, the conditions really change from one part of the course to another. That's probably one of the most traction-friendly sections of the course, as opposed to that descent really looking like it's still got that shine on it. Very, very slick.
Well, these two have the biggest gap they've enjoyed all race long. It's 35 seconds back to 3rd place. So with just over 3 laps left to go for our 2 leaders, Wout van Aert and Doren. And you look back at this run-up here from just a moment ago. As we come down to the final 3 laps, these two have to be sensing that, okay, we are going to decide this race. The battle for first is right here between us 2. Tactically, what starts to go through your mind at this point in the race as they come to the end of lap 5?
Well, you know, it's really important to look at what happens in the final 20 minutes. You know, that's when your fitness, your preparation, everything comes together. If you have a little bit in the tank, you can make a bigger move tactically. You can take a risk. You can make an attack. Otherwise, you're just hanging on and you're kind of passive in your position. But looks like Doren and Wout van Aert looking fairly well matched right now. And we'll see what happens over the next 15 minutes.
So Doren has now moved to the front just ahead of Wout van Aert. Michael Vantur in 3rd and Quentin Hermans 4th at the 5th of 8 laps here in Iowa City.
Yeah, these two are not very friendly right now. That little bit of a gap is enough. You got Vantur now sitting up slightly. Looks like Quentin Hermans getting back onto his wheel, but at the front, it looks like there is an issue for Wout van Aert. He had a small line change.
Look at that.
Almost going over the bars. It's really rutted. We don't see it from this camera angle, but that is far more challenging than it looks from this side angle. Doren's getting through clean. Looks like he's got a small gap over Wout van Aert.
This is the biggest gap between these two that we have seen. Doren now with a margin over Wout van Aert.
That's a solid couple seconds right there. Just going to drop the glasses. I need to be able to see where I'm going as cleanly as I possibly can. I will take the risk if I get a little bit of mud in my eye, but I need to be able to focus, and I think that is our signal right there. That Wout van Aert is taking his position at the front with Doren very seriously, and he does not want to let him get away, but Doren's doing a great job of taking advantage of that small gap and trying to build on it.
Both off their bikes. It was just that last lap that Wout van Aert was looking good. And Doren didn't seem to be as strong. Now, a role reversal here 1 lap later.
Oh, yeah.
This is where it started.
Looks like, you know, choosing to take a different line and then being forced off of it because of getting too close to the wheel. That's something that happens a lot, especially in a big group of riders, but that shows how one small problem can turn into something far bigger when you're up against one of the best riders in the sport right now, and that's Doren.
Absolutely, wow.
Doren's taking the opportunity to try and put some time into the 3-time world champion. Sometimes all it takes is that small opening, and a guy like Doren coming into this race with the confidence of having just won his very first World Cup event a week ago, senses the moment, senses the opportunity to, okay, now let's make the big acceleration in this, put this race to bed if we can.
And he's building on it. He is really going for it. You know, we saw at the beginning of that run-up, Doren was able to pedal 5 or 6 more times than Vantur after those barriers. So that shows that he's got the power and he's going to use it.
Yeah, big surge here by Doren. 8-second lead now. 44 seconds back to 3rd place.
Yeah, look at that. Doren's really on his way. He knows that this is his lap to try and make the big move and make Vantur have to chase him down later. That is the thing that's going to get him this race. We're going to take a look at that lap time when he gets back down to the finish line, but you can see Vantur right now is a different rider than he was just 1 lap ago.
So Vantur now having to do the heavy lifting of chasing down the World Cup leader and last week's winner in Wisconsin. And in a sense, they're both using a similar amount of energy, but mentally, it's a lot different when you're at the front trying to get away, as opposed to being in second trying to chase that leader.
If you have a chance to get the world champion off of your back just for a second, and then you can be on your own and do your best, and he's really taking advantage of that. He is definitely building on this. He may not be able to build on it much on this descent. We saw Vantur doing a little bit better of a job the last time through. He might be able to close a couple seconds. He's definitely not going to give it to him for free, but Doren's doing a great job. Very difficult transition. You're trying to get your body weight to turn from side to side, but you're pivoting on almost nothing. It's like this pivot point that doesn't exist. You have to trust that your tires are going to grip. You really have to commit to making that swap over and over again. Vantur having to hit the brakes a little bit. Looks like that rut on the exit of that turn is not holding up. Doren's really doing a great job of starting to build on this gap in a substantial way.
Now, tactically, sometimes you have that one moment in the race where you want to make that big surge. Use your energy to try and make the difference in the overall outcome. It looks like for Doren, this is that moment. But if a guy like Vantur finds his way back into the race, then it becomes a different ball game, because how much energy did you use trying to get away? Well, he hopes he doesn't have to worry about it.
You know that something like that will happen on the last lap, because it's the last lap. You don't always know it's going to happen 2 or 3 laps out. We saw it, you know, in the women's Road World Championships today. The winner, Vantur, she got away with 40K to go. I mean, it wasn't known that that was going to be the time where the race was going to be won. Doren didn't know that he might win this race by what's happened just this last lap, but he's going to do it, and he's going to do the best that he can.
It is a 13-second gap from this man. Doren's out front to Vantur in 2nd place. Quentin Herman's in 3rd, 52 seconds down. Right alongside Michael Vantur in the battle for what figures to be the final spot on the podium today in Iowa City. This is the 3rd time that this race, part of the Jingle Cross Festival, has been a part of the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup. One of the most popular stops, and in fact it was at the end of last season named the best World Cup venue of all of the 9 on the circuit. That's how much people love this event. The riders, the staff, the fans, just how great a venue and an experience it has been over the last couple of seasons.
Well, you know, if they took that poll right now, I think the answers would be a little bit different. No one's really enjoying it very much, including Vantur. You can see how much he's pushing, trying to run up that very steep incline. You know, that camera angle is not lying. It is almost a vertical wall that they have to get off and run up. Really challenging throughout the course, you're right. This is definitely one of the toughest courses that the riders will face on the UCI World Cup circuit.
When you compare it to some of the others, especially the ones in Europe, what are the biggest differences that make it as demanding and difficult as it is? Obviously, you have Mount Crumpet and the elevation change, but what is it in terms of some of the subtleties and nuances that distinguish this place here in Iowa City?
Well, I think the best part actually is that soil. You know, you look at this grass with this really nice. It's not really mud. It's like when you try and put together your dream course in your head as a cyclocross racer, you want to be able to get traction on these tiny little tires. And Mount Crumpet and here at this Johnson County Fairgrounds, you do that. You get this great feel in your tires, and as a racer, it makes it really enjoyable to try and throw yourself down off the mountain and feel good while doing so. But it really hurts going up, and I think everyone would agree on that.
So 2 laps left to go, and it is Toon Aerts leading Wout van Aert by 17 seconds here in Iowa City. Now, last week in Waterloo, Wisconsin, in the Telenet World Cup season kickoff, the race finished with Toon Aerts just ahead of Wout van Aert. That's the way this race in Iowa City is also unfolding less than a full week later. After Wout van Aert had that issue with his line, stumbled in the mud somewhat, Toon Aerts exploded off the front, surged, and now has opened up this lead that has grown to 17 seconds over the 3-time world champion.
And if he stays trouble-free, you can see Wout van Aert just struggling on that upper mud section. There are 2 options on that area, and it looks like Wout van Aert is constantly getting stuck in that line that he shouldn't be. It's really difficult to watch a rider like that lose time just by line choice. We'll wonder what is keeping him from going in that other line. But, you know, watching this 17-second gap, Toon Aerts, if he stays trouble-free, this could be the gap that he needs to win this race.
Going through the pits for his 3rd bike change. Wout van Aert also into the pit.
He has a pit crew that is made up of some journeymen, some people who have come together to help him get his season off the ground. And they're doing a great job of now battling a mud race like that. But I caught a glimpse of the opposite version of that. That's Sven Nys from the Telenet Fidea team, who is on his phone really trying to figure out how and if Toon Aerts was going to be able to win his 2nd World Cup in a row. They've got a polished group here. They've been coming to the U.S. for many years now, and they've got the supportive track just down the road in Waterloo. They put on the race last weekend, and I know that their pit crew is absolutely dialed, trying to get, I think they have 6 riders in the race today, trying to get all 6 of the riders to have a clean, race is going to get them at the front of this race. But Toon Aerts, if he can win this thing, it's really going to be a huge boon to that squad.
Toon Aerts, the Belgian who turns 25 years of age next month, said that when he got his gap late in that race in Waterloo last week, that it really gave him the peace of mind going into the final lap, that he didn't have to stress about trying to pull off the win, think about tactics and strategy. He had a comfortable margin to work with, and it was easier to finally get that first World Cup win 1 week ago. Looking to get that same kind of margin going into the final lap today as well, and make it a relatively stress-free, drama-free run into his 2nd consecutive victory. At least that's what he hopes as we come up on the 15-minute mark on the penultimate lap of the day.
So that last lap for Toon Aerts, the fastest lap that he's been able to put in this whole day is his 6th lap, 7 minutes and 38 seconds. So very, very fast for him. That shows that he took that gap and he actually tried to push it as far as he possibly could. And he's now continuing on this uphill section, cresting the top of Mount Crumpet. He's going to take a look to his right, see if he can see Wout van Aert. And he's just going to, actually, you won't even be able to see him right now. He's got almost an entire section of this course ahead of the world champion. Definitely going to help him drop down this descent and feel good about it.
Yeah, the lead over Wout van Aert right here has grown to almost half a minute. Now, we've seen some of the issues that Wout van Aert has had, but even so, how surprised are you that he's lost this much time?
You know, I got to say, Toon Aerts he's on fire. You know, he's on great form. Winning the race like he did last weekend, he looked so much more in control. He looked like he was able to take whatever the course is throwing at him, but also whatever any of the other racers were. And you really only do that when you've got great form. And so he's definitely showing that it's continuing right now. You know, I think a lot of people who are back home in Belgium, you know, back in the European circuit, are going to be waiting to see what he does for the rest of the year. We've seen this happen. Obviously, Vantur last year having a great start of the year, crushing these first 2 World Cups. You know, if Toon Aerts comes away 2-0, you know, who knows what's going to happen for the rest of the year, but it definitely sets himself up for an incredible October into November.
Yeah, what do you think his potential is? Like you said, Vantur swept the North American races last year, didn't wind up winning the World Championships. This man won his 3rd in a row, Wout van Aert. But for Toon Aerts, what do you think about what we're seeing here and how it might project out the rest of the year?
So when he was a younger rider in Telenet, he was more of like, you've got great skills, you're lanky, you do well when it's a really challenging course. But now it looks like he's really maturing and growing into that form and fitness. You know, when you've been on the circuit for a couple years, you develop a certain amount of range. You know, I'm only good on this type of course. No, I'm actually getting better on this type of course and that type of course. And you develop this range where you become a really you know, holistic rider. Wout van Aert has been that from the beginning. Like, he has been showing that from the very start, but it's taken a little bit longer for Toon Aerts. He's been a little bit in the shadow of Wout van Aert. They were teammates on Telenet a few years ago, so now he's just off on his own, and I think that this is a great start for him.
Now for Wout van Aert, looks like he may go 0 for 2 with the 2 U.S. races for the 2nd year in a row. Much closer, though, this year than last year. As remember, a year ago, he was 7th and 14th in Wisconsin and Iowa City, respectively, but already a 2nd place finish from last week in Wisconsin here in 2018, and it might be another 2nd place finish today in Iowa City, the way things are unfolding. Toon Aerts here at the front.
A little bit harder this time through. He's going to be seeing 1 to go when he comes back around, but that little uphill section is really taking its toll. You can just see how much pain he's in. He's being cheered on by the world champion Unicorn here in the corner. You know, as opposed to road racing, we keep our crazy fans behind the barrier. It's a little bit more helpful as opposed to
more civilized, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The riders certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, that off-camera section. I was watching some of the pre-ride and reminiscing about racing cyclocross in Switzerland, one of the original foundation countries, and they are famous for having off-camber sections where there is almost 0 traction available. You're riding tires that are basically flat, trying to find as much as you can. And it's just so fun to ride on. It's just, you feel like you're going to die the whole time. But Toon Aerts, you can see how much torque he's putting on that chain. No wonder why a lot of companies use cyclocross as a great ground for testing new product. Wout van Aert doing the same. Just so much power in those legs to keep that bike moving forward.
So he is coming back up to the end of this lap. 1 lap left to go for our leader, Toon Aerts.
Yeah, you can feel it right here. You can feel it. He's beginning to smell that finish line.
Here is Wout van Aert. A distant 2nd now. Losing time to his fellow Belgian at the front. Got a lot of work to do on the final lap here at the Johnson County Fairgrounds to make it close. 28 seconds back of Aerts as the final lap commences. And Michael Vantur in 3rd. There's Quinton Hermans, number 7 and 4th.
Those two are really locked in a great battle. That gap has really not grown more than 5 seconds for the last 45 minutes. It goes to show how close they are in their lap times. You know, taking a look at those numbers, they are within 7 seconds almost the entire time. Trouble-free for both. Looks like Vantur looking like he's got some power in those legs, trying to make this last lap really count.
A 24-year-old Belgian hoping to finish on the podium here in Iowa City for the first time. And Quentin Herman's just off the podium at the moment as his 8th and final lap begins.
That podium spot still within his reach. He really needs to make sure he stays as close as he can, or hope that something happens to Vantur out there to keep him off of it. But that is great. It's a great battle to see for that 3rd position.
So if you're Toon Aerts, you lead by half a minute, 1 lap left to go, just over 3K. It is right around 2 miles of racing. How are you approaching this final lap with the big lead? Sometimes a big lead can be a big issue mentally for some riders. You'd rather have it than not have it, obviously, but what's the approach for Toon Aerts as he leads Wout van Aert here final time around?
Well, you have to dance with a little bit of being safe, but also being aggressive. You know, you can't sit up and let that gap start to shrink, but you also have to be safe enough to stay out of trouble. And you know, it's a real dance to be able to do. You can see Wout van Aert getting over the barriers and getting immediately off the bike. Toon Aerts was still able to ride a little bit higher up, so I feel like Toon Aerts still has the legs to continue to build on that gap. Wout van Aert is really looking like he's starting to tire, and he's going to lose a little bit more time over this last lap.
The biggest battle may wind up being for that 3rd and final podium spot between Vantur and Hermans.
Yeah, I've seen some more groups come through here, but look at those lap times. You can see that big lap there, number 6, 7 minutes and 38 seconds. That was Toon Aerts on the attack ahead of Wout van Aert. So that obviously was the big move of the day. Wout van Aert going across the sand section here, looking like he's wearing that effort all over. He is not hiding one thing from us, certainly not from any of the other riders out there. Toon Aerts definitely riding his way to a victory. Still able to stand up, still able to push. You're doing that on the final lap of the World Cup. It shows that you have shown up in great fitness and great form.
Well, what a week it has been for Toon Aerts. Came to the U.S. this year here in 2018 without having ever won a World Cup race, and now in a span of really less than a full week, bags each of the first 2 World Cup events on the Telenet World Cup UCI circuit, and really in pretty convincing fashion. If things stay the way they are, he won in decisive fashion last week in Wisconsin, has a healthy margin that's only growing to over half a minute on the final lap here in Iowa City. This is some start to the new campaign for the Belgian.
Yeah, the first national champion was running there as well.
In 2nd place, Wout van Aert was looking good in the early going. In fact, had the lead. Looked like Toon Aerts maybe was the less fresh of the 2. But boy, how things turned around.
Steve, that is the internet meme waiting to happen. Wout van Aert looking like he's near death at the top of that climb. Shows how difficult it is. It is not easy out here. Racing at the front of a World Cup takes almost everything you can possibly give. He knows that his trip in the U.S. is done. He's going to go back to Belgium. He's going to go back to trying getting that rainbow jersey back on his shoulders. But Toon Aerts is absolutely ripping him apart right now. Going down this very difficult descent. He's almost the entire descent ahead of him right now. That's Van Aert just dropping down into the chute. But wow, that is an incredible show of force for Toon Aerts. He is going to go up in status back on the European circuit, back on the World Cup circuit. He is going to be very, very favorable. I mean, really, it's going to be inspiring to a lot of people right now because he has shown this much growth with this trip to the U.S.
And how about his team? They're going to make it 4 for 4 so far in races this season, winning every race that they have entered.
Yeah, no, that was a great start for Lars van der Haar. He was the winner of the first Brico Cup in Herardsbergen, and kicking off the season for them. You know, I love the start-finish area here in Iowa City. It is absolutely jam-packed with people ready to welcome Toon Aerts into the finish line if he's able to make his way around. Michael Vantur inching his way around those corners. This is two nerds in the middle of the barn section here. You know, don't forget, this is an American fairgrounds. It's unique for a lot of people watching from overseas or watching from different areas, but these are normally filled with animals. And I remember when we first started coming to Cyclocross with that Christmas theme, I think the Grinch was in almost every one of those buildings, and we definitely rode through there every year so far. This is the first time we haven't gone through one of those buildings in the World Cup.
And they still have the holiday theme, even though here we are on the last Saturday of September. Not even Halloween yet. But, I mean, let's face it, Christmas seems to start earlier and earlier every year. The holiday themes and lights come out almost right after the 4th of July in some places.
Thankfully, that's just an American problem. Now, Tuner's looking really strong. He's able to ride that section once again. Legs a little bit heavier on this running section, but he knows that his gap is strong enough to be able to do that. He's going to take a nice, easy descent here. Not going to have a stupid crash. Keep things going around. You know, this is one of the best parts of winning a race, is having this 30-second gap between, you know, no one's there anymore. No one's on that hard section. No one's on that hard run-up anymore. They've all gone to the finish line. And it's from there to the finish, nice and quiet. You're on your own. You're just trying to put these corners together. You don't want to crash, but you can't wait to get to the finish line. It's this anxiousness that is just coursing through your body. So Tuner's is going to be over the moon with this finish.
Tuner's, who turns 25 years of age next month, the European champion from 2 years ago, just dominating. Last week in Waterloo, Wisconsin, and today in Iowa City as well. It's going to be another convincing win for the Belgian, Tuner's. Hands in the air. The first 2 World Cup wins of his career have come in each of the last 2 weeks, and today he's the winner in Iowa City.
Yeah, he is happy. That is a huge victory. So much different than last week. This is head-to-head, difficult conditions against a 3-time world champion. Absolutely head-to-head for the first 30 minutes of this race before he finally got a chance to make an attack. Take advantage of a small mistake that Wout van Aert had, but it looks like it was meant to be because Wout van Aert was ceding time every single moment after that.
Well, it's the same top 2 as last week in Waterloo. Tuner's the winner, and the 3-time world champion Wout van Aert, a dejected look on his face as he finishes 2nd. Back-to-back runner-up finishes for the world champion here in the 2 U.S. races on the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup. And then the final spot on the podium will go to Vantur, a Belgian who was in quite a battle with Quinten Hermans for several laps today for 3rd place, but it's going to be Vantur, his first U.S. podium on the World Cup today here in Iowa City. The 24-year-old Belgian completes the podium in 3rd, 1:16 seconds back of our winner, Tuner's. And there is Quinten Hermans, who last year was on the podium in 3rd. This year misses it by 1 spot, finishing in 4th.
Really strong race for those two. They've definitely separated themselves from everyone else out on course, putting together lap times that were consistent, but not as fast as the front, but staying ahead of the fray. This is going to be Corne van Kessel here coming across the line in 5th position, another Dutch rider.
Now the Belgians with 9 of the top 10 placings for most of the day. Corne van Kessel, the Dutch rider, the only one interrupting the Belgian dominance. And rounding out the top 5 at 2 minutes down.
Merlier and Kevin Powell, now one of our veterans on course. He'll use a beat here. Under 23 winner today. So he's going to be our first under 23 rider across the line. Lars Swake, Dan Sotis.
Now Swig last year, second to Matthew Vantur in this race, and Swig also on the podium last week in Waterloo in third behind Ertz and Vantur.
You know, he's known for a really good start to the season. Unfortunately, not having as great of a race today. I think it had a lot to do with the course and having to battle in that group. It really is easy to lose track of what's happening at the front of the race when you're constantly battling 3 or 4 other riders in the group that you're in.
That will be well placed for Tom Lewis.
Fan favorite there, Tom Newsom, number 10 coming across the line.
Well, now waiting on Nicholas Clipper.
Now here is our third
Michael
place
Vantur
finisher, Michael Vantur.
van opgave in Waterloo naar het podium in Iowa. Wat is er gebeurd de afgelopen week?
Ja, ik heb gewoon deze week nog een keer goed getraind en probeerde mijn hoofd een beetje leeg te maken en dat is toch wel redelijk goed gelukt. En dat is ook wel een parcours die mij veel beter op mijn lijf geschreven is en dat blijkt direct een veel beter resultaat.
Het moet een enorme opluchting zijn ook voor jou dat je dit resultaat nu rijdt.
Ja, sowieso. Ik zit hier 7 dagen eigenlijk met een beetje kopzorgen omdat je toch niet echt weet wat er scheelt. En dan probeer je gewoon te focussen op de trainingen en dat nu zijn vruchten afwerpt, doet wel heel veel deugd. Ja.
Hoe was het eigenlijk, die strijd achter de 2 leiders?
Ja, in het begin hebben we proberen goed samen te werken met Dijk en Quinten. En om eerst proberen toch het gaatje op de achtervolgers een beetje groter te maken. En ja, dan op de Rianne Fontein had ik dit proberen en ik voelde direct dat ik net iets beter was bergop. En de voorlaatste ronde heb ik alles op alles gezet om die derde plaats.
Proficiat. In Waterloo and now you're on the podium. What happened last week?
Yeah, for me was also a big question for today. And this week I have a hard training week and the result in this race was quite better.
You must be relieved right now.
Yeah, for me it was really unbelievable to in 1 week to give up to no third place. For me it's also good for in my mind.
Congratulations, thank you.
Other riders still coming across here. As Michael Vantur, as you saw, they're very satisfied with that third place finish to be on the podium here in Iowa City. And we will hear from Wout van Aert and our winner, Toon Aerts, shortly as well. Good crowd at the finish. As we look back at the celebration of Toon Aerts, last week he jumped the last flyover in Waterloo as he acknowledged and celebrated his very first World Cup win. And this week, win number 2 as he cajoles the crowd into celebration. And what a week it's been in the U.S. for that man. Last Sunday was win number 1, and now here on the final Saturday in September, it's the second World Cup win for Toon Aerts, the 24-year-old, just ahead of the 3-time world champion, Wout van Aert. And once again, it's a Belgian podium sweep with Michael Vantur finishing in 3rd, just ahead of Quinten Hermans and Corne van Kessel in the top 5. What stood out the most to you about the race today and the way Toon Aerts won it?
Well, I really think that what Toon Aerts was able to put together was really a perfect race. And we saw the one mistake really cost Wout van Aert the finish that he so desperately wanted. But again, it's a 2nd place at a World Cup. It's a good start to the year. I think that, looking at the rest of that top 10 is just that the gaps are so big and really having riders come across one by one showed how difficult that this course really is. Not much pack racing compared to last weekend. And again, the difference really being set with your ability to handle the changing conditions of this race. Going to look at Kerry Warner there, number 27. He was 2nd American today. Gage Heck just in front of him. I think they were 21st and 22nd on the day. Really good start from Gage Heck earlier. We'll get another look at just how the Americans did. Under 23 races, another battle, Ellie Iserbyt. He was top 10 as best under 23 rider. from Belgium. Definitely one of those other categories that the race within a race is really important to be able to be up there, and not a separate start like they have at some of the World Cups. They combine those two for races like here in Waterloo and here in Iowa City. Former professional rider Jason McCartney there, Iowa native, second from the right. Looks like he's enjoying himself here on Mount Crumpet.
Look at you, able to identify people with a beverage in the crowd on a hill just in front of the woods. What an eye.
Yeah, there's a great crowd here, and I think that this really shows what it takes to have a great atmosphere around a World Cup race. You know, these are the best riders in the world. They've been welcomed into the family here in Iowa, and everyone comes out to thank them.
So the World Cup standings on the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup campaign after the first two races here in the U.S. Toon Aerts continues to lead the way ahead of Wout van Aert and Quentin Hermans in the top three. Swick and Van Kessel fourth and fifth. So after 2 of 9 events altogether, Toon Aerts is the overall leader. He will take that white leader's jersey back to Europe, where they will hold the remaining 7 races of the season. And again, remember, no Mathieu van der Poel, not racing the first 2 events of the year. We'll see him in Europe when the series resumes next month. Now look back at how this one played out today here in Iowa City. From the start. And it was a good one for Wout van Aert.
Yeah, clean start for all these riders, getting into their pedals quickly and easily. Wout van Aert on the right. Looks like Lars van der Haar in the middle was able to get the whole shot once again, something he's very famous for. But as they approach the end of the straightaway, really getting onto the tougher parts of the course. This is the first descent. Toon Aerts leading. We've got Lars van der Haar, in third position running. But we see van Aert taking the lead. Not able to hold it, but just shows how challenging it was at the start of today's race. Uphill, huge power output of these 2 riders, separating themselves from the rest of the field early on and building on it. Vantur now chasing as fast as he possibly could. Really tough run up here. One of the signature features of the Jingle Cross World Cup is Mount Crumpet.
And they were together for quite a while, several laps, before things really got away from Wout van Aert.
That was a long time together, really head-to-head, those 2 riders separating. This is the moment where we saw Wout van Aert make a small mistake here. Looks like he was on his limit already, but almost overlapping the back wheel of Toon Aerts, separating himself, not able to close it down. Toon Aerts shows that he was really on top of things, immediately noticing that gap and hitting the gas.
Now, Wout van Aert had that issue with the line. The course had a shoe problem, and that allowed Toon Aerts to really take the race under control and then just charge away from Wout van Aert and everybody else to pull away to this win. And for the second straight week, Wout van Aert winds up in second. And for the first time on a U.S. podium, it is Michael Vantur and Hout. So 2 races in the U.S. to kick off the Telenet UCI World Cup season, and 2 Belgian sweeps of the podium, led by Toon Aerts in his very first 2 World Cup wins.
That's Wout van Aert's bike right there, the one he put together very quickly with the help of all of his friends, not missing the chance to go ahead and Sharpie his name on those tires. I believe he has his own signature set of tires, but for today it's just going to be a Sharpie. That's fine.
Now a lot of Belgian fans here in the U.S. joining the U.S. contingent. Now the Belgians sending more riders to this race than any other nation here today. No surprise, and putting 9 of the first 10 Belgians into the top 10 here. With The women's race coming up shortly to follow here in Iowa City. A lot of folks with their pets. They actually had a doggy cross race earlier on a modified course. Owners with the dogs taking them out there. Part of 80 races altogether that are being held over the 3-day Jingle Cross Festival. Started yesterday, wraps up tomorrow. A lot of amateur racing, other professional racing, and then the 2 World Cup races here today. And Wout van Aert, our second place finisher.
Wout van Aert, tweede keer tweede plaats hier in de VS. Wat gebeurde er toen je het gaatje moest laten op Ton?
Ja, ik had daar af en toe een goede passage, af en toe een slechte, net als Ton. Ik was een heel moeilijk stuk en verloor 10 meter. Maar ja, ik voelde, net als vorige week, dat de energie een beetje op mijn lijf stroomde in de tweede helft van de koers. En best wel raar. In het begin kan ik goed mee, kan ik ook het verschil mee maken. Maar in de tweede helft ja, zak ik er eigenlijk helemaal door. Kan ik toch een pak minder snel rijden. En ja, dan moeten we nog een oplossing voor zoeken.
Want Ton die liep ook verder en verder uit. Hè. Had je echt het gevoel dat het helemaal op was daarna?
Ja, het leek de energie eigenlijk uit mijn lijf stroomde. En, ja, het is toch wel het is bizar. Ik heb er zelf niet echt een andere verklaring voor. Maar ik kan alleen maar weer zien dat Ton heel sterk was. En dat voelde ik ook de eerste helft van de koers. En toen kon ik zijn aanvallen nog wel beantwoorden en bij hem aanhangen. Maar vanaf dat ik 10 meter verloren, dat foutje of misschien net iets meer, kon ik het niet meer goed maken. En dat was definitief weg. Dus ja, als je goed bent, dan kun je dat nog terug oplossen. En nu was het game over.
Geen Mathieu van der Poel voorlopig hier, maar dan bots je wel op een Ton Aerts die blijkbaar in bloedvorm is. Onder de indruk?
Ja, Ton is super sterk en het is zeker niet, het is zeker niet een revelatie. Hè. Vorig jaar was hij ook vaker al kort bij. En nu lijkt hij, denk ik, als ik mag zeggen, in tegenstelling tot andere jaren wel een heel goede start gemaakt hebben. En ja, als het dit de hele winter kan volhouden, zal voor mij Mathieu zeker een concurrent blijven. Maar ik wil eerst vooral zelf terug mijn niveau opnieuw vinden en daar zal ik werk genoeg mee hebben.
Dankjewel.
Merci.
In Engels nog een paar vragen. Wout van Aert, second place. What happened when Ton made the gap on you?
Actually, I don't know. It was weird. It was a difficult section there, and I had some good laps and some bad laps. But in the lap that Ton went away, I struggled a bit and lost only 10 meters or 20 meters. And afterwards, I was not able to catch up back with him. And it's now the second time in 1 week that I feel like losing my energy level in the second half of the race. And it's not easy to accept, and we have to see if it's possible to find a solution for that, because it's not really useful.
Are you impressed with Ton Aerts, with what he has shown you these last couple of weeks?
Yeah, of course, he's super strong. I know he has a big engine, and it's definitely not a surprise for me that he's strong. But the previous seasons he had sometimes a difficult start of the season, which is not the case now. And I think when he is able to keep on this level, he will be a contender for the whole season. But first of all, I want to find better legs for myself and some rest.
Thank you very much.
So Wout van Aert, second for the second week in a row. And Doren, his second win here on US soil.
Ton Aerts, dat is 2 op 2. Jij moet smoorverliefd zijn geworden op de Verenigde Staten.
Ja, inderdaad. Ik heb van deze 2 weken eigenlijk echt wel genoten. Vroeger zag ik er altijd wel tegenop om naar hier te komen, want het is toch een hele trip en zo aan het begin van het seizoen. Maar als je goede resultaten rijdt, is dat eigenlijk best wel fijn om hier te vertoeven.
Opnieuw het verschil gemaakt net aan de materiaalzone. Vertel eens, wat is daar precies gebeurd? Hoe wist je dat je daar moest doorduwen?
Ja, ik denk in het begin dat ik op iets te harde banden aan het rondrijden was. Maar toen maakte ik redelijk wat foutjes, maar kreeg ze altijd vrij gemakkelijk gedicht op Wout terug. Dus ik had wel het gevoel dat ik best in orde was vandaag. Maar toen op een gegeven moment zat ik in de eerste positie en zag ik in mijn ooghoek dat Wout een foutje maakte daarnaast de materiaalpost. En grijpte ik die kans om eigenlijk toch wel eens vol door te trekken. En ik pakte dan een paar meter en dan kon ik stelselmatig uitbouwen, dan maakte ik misschien bergop iets beter was vandaag.
Je liep ook alleen maar verder uit en het strafste, de voorlaatste ronde, was het snelste rondje van de hele cross. Waar komt die bloedvorm vandaan?
Ja, dat is voor mij ook een beetje de vraag. Ik ben in augustus een klein beetje ziek geweest. Ik heb op stage iets rustiger aangedaan dan andere jaren. En misschien heeft me dan net geholpen dat ik eens een keer kalm ben geweest in de zomer. En niet te gespannen naar dat seizoen had toegewerkt. Ik had eigenlijk in mijn kop van pas van november echt goed te zijn. Maar het zou moeilijk zijn om daar nog iets uit te doen, denk ik.
En het leuke, die leiderstrui. Nog wat steviger om je schouders nu.
Ja, ik had niet verwacht dat ik hem ging kunnen meenemen naar Europa. Zeker niet 2 weken geleden toen aan de start van de race in Waterloo. Maar nu dat we hier aan het einde van deze tweede wedstrijd in Amerika zijn, ik kan die een trui meenemen op het vliegtuig overmorgen, dan dat doet echt wel heel veel deugd.
Proficiat.
Thank you.
Ton Aerts, that's 2 out of 2. Not born in the USA, but in love with the USA.
Yes, indeed. It were 2 great weeks with the team hanging out at the track factory and the last days now in Iowa. It's great to be here.
Tell me, how did you make the difference on Wout? Because you got away, but then the gap got bigger and bigger.
Yes, at the second half of the race, that Wout makes a mistake, and that was my chance to do a little effort and take some seconds in front. I get the gap gets bigger and bigger, so it was I have to make no mistakes and keep the pace high, and that's what I did, and the gap was big enough at the end to win.
And now you got the jersey for another race. Is that a goal until the end of the season now?
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit easier that I can do the interviews in Europe the next weeks because my English is not that good.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Now the European champion from 2016, but really making his mark here on the World Cup in just the last week, coming to the U.S. without Mathieu van der Poel, who won the 2 U.S. races a year ago. And Wout van Aert, the issue with his former team, trying to build bikes last week, get comfortable, get all of his mechanical issues ironed out here. And so Doren Aerts taking advantage of the situation, but to take nothing away from the Belgian, he's been fantastic and the best rider over the course of these last 2 races, deservedly winning these 2 events in both Wisconsin and Iowa City. I mean, his first 2 World Cup wins have both been in emphatic fashion.
And against the reigning world champion. It can't be overlooked. You know, if you had someone like Van Aert and Van der Poel not racing here, and you were to come away with 2 World Cup wins, they'd be like, oh, great, good job. You know, you've had a great start of the season. But to beat a Wout van Aert like this is very impressive for him.
And Vantur out climbing onto the podium for the first time here in Iowa City. He finished a minute 16 behind our winner. But the podium certainly a plus for him.
In second place, riding from Belgium, Wout van Aert.
3-time world champion. Went 0 for 2 in the U.S. races here last year, but then it did not stop him from winning his 3rd consecutive world title at the end of the year. So maybe he won't be too concerned by how things went down here. A pair of 2nd place finishes in Wisconsin and in Iowa. And now our winner.
Racing for the Telenet Lions, 2 knots.
Waterloo and Iowa City. 2 for 2 in the U.S. How far can he take this momentum and this form? Can he win the overall Telenet World Cup this year?
Well, I think he's setting himself up for it. Like I mentioned, without Mathieu van der Poel up here, he's going to be ahead, 120 points ahead of him right now. And that's a great lead to work with. However, he still needs to put together, the next 7 events in the best way they possibly can. But I think that what Wout just said in that interview is telling, is that the last few seasons he's known that Toon has been this strong, but he hasn't been able to do it for one reason or another. So if there's gonna be a year for him to do it, it's gonna be this year.
So he hangs on to that Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup leaders jersey. Pulled it on for the first time in his career last week in Wisconsin. And he'll take it from here in Iowa City back across the Atlantic to Europe for when the World Cup resumes, with the next stop in Bern, Switzerland in October.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race. First time event there. Switzerland being one of the original countries that really embrace cyclocross, and when I started, that was really the place where people went. But you know, Belgium, since taking over, you know, the last decade and a half or so, it's no surprise to stack the podium with 3 Belgians here at the World Cup again.
The Belgian national anthem for the 3 Belgians on the podium today here in Iowa City. Toon Aerts, Wout van Aert, and Michael Vantur. So, once again, Toon Aerts with a 2nd World Cup win in as many weeks here in the U.S. And now for Tim Johnson, I'm Steve Schlanger. Thanks for joining us, everyone, for the Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup from here in Iowa City.
Champagne celebration here in Iowa City. One more time, Iowa City, give it up for Michael Vantur.